This tutorial goes out to those of you who are new to the MIDI mockup game, and I'm going to start by just quickly recapping something I talked about in the previous tutorial about why it is that composers and orchestrators use multiple sample libraries. And that's because there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all library that would be suitable for every style of music or encompass the entire possible range of musical expression. But if you're just starting out and you have only one sample library, don't sweat it. We all start out with one library, and there's plenty to learn about how to use it and get things to sound realistic with it that will carry over to any other libraries you might acquire in the future. And for perspective, saying that every sample library has limitations is really just one way to look at things. So for as much as a library is going to have expressive limitations, it's also going to have its expressive strengths. To me, the expressive strength of the Kirk Hunter cello from the previous tutorial is its sad and somber quality. And the strength of the Vienna solo cello is its crisp sound and sort of serious character. At least that's how I would characterize those sounds, but that's not how some people would look at it. Some people might say that the Vienna version was better simply because it was a Vienna sound, as opposed to some never heard of it before old sample library from the 1990s. And they might say that even without having heard any music made with that sound. And if that sounds strange or even unreasonable, well, unfortunately, when it comes to talking about sample libraries on internet discussion forums, it's very common to encounter sample library snobbery and fanboy loyalty to certain sample library developers. So if you're new to the mockup thing and you're looking to the internet for advice on which sample library to get, I would suggest avoiding any advice based solely on brand loyalty or even popular opinion. For example, I recently had a conversation with another composer about, well, let's just call it Library X. And she said that lots of people were praising it on a certain discussion forum and that she was considering getting it. I said, yeah, I know people who use Library X. And every time I hear that sound, it sounds totally fake. And she said, you know what? To be honest with you, that's how I feel about it too. And ultimately, she decided not to buy it. So this is just to say that the power of popular opinion can indeed be a persuasive force. So when you're looking to buy a sample library, try and remember that this isn't a popularity contest. Making music is a very personal thing. It's making art, and it's an extension of yourself. So if you're looking to the web for information about which sample libraries to get, you want to get quality opinions and serious information, because ultimately all that information will parlay into spending real money on a library. And the fanboys and armchair experts out there on the web would love to spend that money for you. So to get the best information, give information. When asking for recommendations, be specific about the styles of music you're writing or the types of ensembles you want to write for. Tempo is a consideration too, because some libraries actually aren't very good for writing very fast or very slow music. And now, some final bits of advice to those of you new to the world of MIDI mockups. Number 1, forget about those engineering plugins. EQs, compressors, multiband compressors and limiters, and in particular, mastering plugins, are not going to help you enhance the realism in your mockups. No, realism comes from making sure that each part in your mockup clearly states your musical intentions and sounds like it was performed by a really good player. And I'll be going into a little more detail about this later in the course. But back to the engineering side of things, I really sincerely hope that you take my advice and don't put your focus into engineering. Instead, put your focus into making each one of your MIDI parts sound as musical as possible, and then when it comes time to mix, you'll be 90% of the way there. Number 2, learn the basics of orchestration and what the sound of real instruments are really like. Now, all of that truly involves a lifetime of study. But to get to know the sound of real instruments, you can attend concerts and listen to recordings. Or to really get to know what an instrument sounds like, from time to time, consider getting together with an instrumentalist one-on-one and have them give you a guided tour of their instrument. Find out what the range of the instrument is, called the tessitura, and find out what the best sounding notes are within that range. ask them about performance difficulties, and find out what sort of contemporary music or special effect sounds they can produce. In fact, I just recently got together with a trombone player because I wanted to learn more about the instrument, and I gotta tell you, it didn't feel like work. And last but not least, remember that as with learning a real instrument, learning how to create effective mock-ups takes patience and practice.